Don't look at that, please, Noah. Just don't. Her voice didn't sound like the voice of a CEO. It wasn't cold, composed, or commanding. It cracked, sharp, trembling, almost frightened. Before Noah could even lift his head, her hand clutched his shoulder with a force that startled him, pulling him back from the glowing monitor. But the screen had already flickered. A flash of light, soft, warm, an image he wasn't meant to see. Then the whole office went dim except for that single monitor, pulsing like a heartbeat in the dark. No, 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 no. Why is it opening by itself? She whispered, stumbling backward as though the computer were something alive. Noah froze. His tools were still in his hands, mid-repair. The room felt too still, too quiet, except for Eleanor's ragged breathing and the faint hum of the server racks behind her glass walls. Her reflection shook in the window, Seattle's skyline sprawling behind her like a witness. Look away, she pleaded again, softer this time, but heavier, like an apology she wasn't used to giving. Noah didn't move. Couldn't. Because the photo on the screen didn't match the woman standing in front of him. This woman, Eleanor Hayes, the untouchable CEO feared across the entire tech district, was never seen smiling, never unguarded, never human. But the image was different. Her unfiltered face. A small, almost embarrassed smile. No fancy lighting, no corporate armor. Just her. Eleanor stepped closer, eyes wide, shimmering with something he didn't understand. Am I? Her voice failed. She swallowed hard, then tried again, barely audible. Am I pretty? The question hung in the air, wrong, inappropriate, impossible, and yet painfully sincere. Noah opened his mouth, unsure what answer she wanted, or what answer she feared. But before he could speak, the computer jerked violently and the screen shattered into glitching lines. Another window forced itself open, bypassing every command, every firewall. Eleanor's eyes snapped to it, and her entire body stiffened. No, she breathed, horrified. Not that. Not now. The document loaded anyway. Her face drained of color. Noah, she whispered, stepping back like she'd been struck. Whatever you saw, you can't pretend it didn't happen. Then another file opened automatically, this one displaying a single name. A name Noah knew. A name tied to a part of his life he never revisited. His heart stopped. To understand how a single dad ended up entangled in the private life of Seattle's most unreachable CEO, we need to go back to where everything began. Before we proceed, please take a moment to like, subscribe and comment where you're watching from to support this channel's growth. It's just a push of a button to you, but it means the world to me. Thank you. Now let's get into it. Noah Reeves stared at the name glowing on his phone screen long after the ringing stopped, as if the device itself had suddenly become heavier. Hayes Dynamics Tower. The request had come through the emergency tech support app he freelanced on, an urgent after-hours computer repair, double-rate pay, no specific details. Of course it's tonight, he muttered, leaning back against the peeling counter of his tiny Beacon Hill apartment. The kitchen light flickered overhead, again. He'd been meaning to fix it for weeks, but between raising Luna, working late-night gigs, and trying not to drown under Seattle's rent prices, small things like that slipped by. Daddy! A small voice called. Luna patted in, wearing her lavender pajamas with cartoon moons, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Her curly hair stuck out in every direction like a halo of static. Noah softened immediately. No matter how stressful the day was, his daughter always had the power to anchor him. You okay, bug? He asked. She nodded and climbed onto one of the wobbly stools. You were making your tired face again. He let out a breathy laugh. Was I? She pointed to his forehead. Right there. It gets all squinchy. Squinchy, huh? He teased, pressing a kiss to her forehead. She giggled before her eyes drifted to the phone still in his hand. Is it work again? He hesitated. Yeah. And it's a big one. Big like last week? When that man tried to pay you in concert tickets, 'cause his wife took the card?" she asked with wide-eyed innocence. Noah snorted. "Bigger." Truthfully, the client's name alone was intimidating. Hayes Dynamics was practically the crown jewel of Seattle's tech district. Gleaming glass, high-level security, and a reputation for being impossible to get inside without credentials. He'd done small gigs for upper-floor employees who didn't want corporate IT knowing they'd accidentally clicked phishing links, but he'd never been summoned by the tower itself. And certainly not at 8:47 p.m. He looked around their apartment. Small, cramped, with mismatched thrift store furniture and a window view of a parking lot instead of the iconic skyline. Bills sat stacked on the table, some opened, some still sealed, but all heavy. He rubbed the back of his neck. "I don't know if I should go." "Why not?" Luna asked. "Because," he swallowed. "Because it means leaving you tonight. Again." She leaned her cheek on her hand. "But we need the money, right?" He blinked. She had overheard more of his phone calls than he thought. "Bug, you don't need to worry about that." "But I do," she insisted with the seriousness only a 7-year-old could muster. "If you work tonight, maybe we can get the shoes I need for school. The ones with the stars that light up." He sighed. "Yeah, maybe." She slid off the stool, wrapped her arms around his waist, and looked up at him with those big hazel eyes that mirrored her mother's, except Luna's held none of the coldness he'd once known. Only warmth. "You should go," she said softly. "It'll be okay. I'll be here when you get back." He hugged her tight. In that moment, the decision he'd been wrestling with dissolved. He couldn't afford pride or exhaustion. Not when he had someone depending on him. "All right," he whispered into her hair. "I'll go." He tucked her into bed, waited until her breathing settled into its soft, rhythmic pattern, then grabbed his tool bag, the same one he'd carried for years. The Seattle air slapped him awake the second he stepped outside, cold, slightly damp, smelling faintly of rain and distant coffee roasters. The drive to downtown was quiet. The closer he got, the more the city transformed, small businesses and apartments giving way to skyscrapers bathed in artificial light. Hayes Dynamics Tower was a monolith of glass and steel, rising above the others like it owned the skyline. He parked in a visitor garage and approached the entrance. 2 uniformed guards eyed him before checking his credentials. One scanned his ID, another scanned his tool bag. "This is a restricted request," the guard said. "You're to go directly to the penthouse level." "The penthouse?" Noah asked, genuinely confused. "Are you sure?" The guard didn't blink. "CEO request." His stomach dropped. CEO. He hadn't been hired by some stressed-out executive assistant or a panicked software engineer. Eleanor Hayes herself had summoned him. He stepped into the private elevator. The walls were reflective, the floor immaculate. He caught sight of his own reflection, worn jeans, slightly frayed jacket, hair tousled from the wind. A stark contrast to the polished world he was about to enter. When the doors opened onto the penthouse-level office, he nearly forgot to breathe. The room was massive, lined with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Seattle. The iconic Space Needle stood glowing in the distance. The office itself was minimal, clean, sharp lines, everything pristine and arranged with surgical precision. And at the far end of the room stood Eleanor Hayes. Tall, impeccably dressed in a charcoal silk blouse and fitted black slacks. Her hair, dark, sleek, and perfectly controlled, fell just past her shoulders. She looked like a woman carved from ambition and discipline. She didn't greet him, didn't smile, didn't even soften her posture. "You're late," she said instead. He checked the time. "Ma'am, the request came in 25 minutes ago." "I came as fast as—" She lifted a hand, silencing him. "My system is malfunctioning. I need full functionality restored immediately." Her voice carried zero emotion. No warmth, No hostility. Just precision. Noah cleared his throat. All right, I'll take a look. He approached the desk. Her workstation was a high-end custom build, water-cooled, encrypted, with a curved ultra-wide monitor spanning nearly the entire desk. Top-tier everything, but currently frozen on a static, glitchy screen. As he powered it down manually, he felt her watching him, not impatiently, but intensely, like she was studying his every move. Something was off. Not just the computer. Not just the late-night request. Not just her strange, razor-straight composure. Something beneath the surface of all of it. He restarted the system, tapped a few diagnostic keys, and a faint beep, a flicker, a line of hidden code beginning to reveal itself. And then, a folder he didn't recognize flashed in the corner of the screen, right before it forced itself open. If you were Noah, carrying the weight of bills and responsibility, would you have taken that late-night call, or stayed home? For a moment, the only sound in Eleanor Hayes's corner office was the steady hum of the ceiling vents. Noah sat at her sleek glass desk, hands hovering over the keyboard as he continued running system diagnostics. The Seattle skyline glowed behind her, waterfront lights glittering across Elliott Bay, traffic easing along Alaskan Way, ferries drifting like slow-moving lanterns. Yet inside the office, everything felt still. Noah cleared his throat softly, trying not to think about how out of place he looked. His faded flannel shirt, worn jeans, and scuffed work boots didn't belong anywhere near the 52nd floor of Hayes Dynamics Tower. Eleanor stood behind him, arms crossed, pacing with the quietness of a ghost. He could feel the weight of her gaze on the back of his neck. "Your system's been glitching for weeks," Noah murmured, scrolling through lines of corrupted code. "But whatever triggered tonight's crash, it's buried deep." Eleanor gave no response. She had barely spoken since he walked in, only a curt nod, a clipped explanation, then silence. She wasn't just intimidating, she was unreadable. That bothered Noah more than the luxury, more than the pressure, more than the hour. He typed another command, trying to isolate the corrupted sectors. The computer flickered. Once. Twice. "Come on," he whispered, leaning closer. Then the screen went black. Noah froze. That wasn't supposed to." The monitor flashed back on, but not to the system interface, not to the diagnostic dashboard, not to anything he had consciously opened. Instead, a single image filled the entire display. A woman. Alone. Standing in front of a mirror. No filters, no glamour, no corporate armor. Just her. Wearing simple jeans and a white tank top, hair down, expression soft, almost painfully human. She looked years younger, far more vulnerable than the steely CEO he'd met an hour ago. Noah's stomach dropped. His pulse spiked. Oh no, I didn't, this wasn't." He jerked his hands off the keyboard like it burned him. Behind him, Eleanor stopped pacing. Silence. Deep. Heavy. "Noah," she said quietly. He swallowed, the sound loud in his own ears. "Ms. Hayes, I swear, this popped up on its own. I didn't mean to open anything personal. I must have triggered a buried folder by accident. I know," she said. That response was not what he expected. No anger. No yelling. No threat of firing him, suing him, destroying his career with a single phone call. Just calm. Too calm. The office felt colder. Slowly, Eleanor stepped beside him, gazing at the screen. Her shoulders rose with a single breath, then fell. She looked smaller somehow, as if the towering skyscraper around her had finally revealed its cracks. "That photo," she murmured. "I didn't think it was still on this drive." Noah didn't dare look at her. He kept his eyes fixed on the keyboard, heart hammering. "I'm really sorry." She cut him off, but not harshly. "Don't apologize." He risked a glance at her. Her expression wasn't angry. It wasn't cold. It was afraid. Not of him. Of the moment itself. Eleanor sat on the edge of her desk, crossing her legs, facing him directly. For the first time, Noah noticed how tired she looked beneath the perfect makeup, the faint shadows under her eyes, the brittleness around her mouth. "Tell me," she whispered. "When you saw that photo, what did you think?" Noah blinked. I didn't think anything. I mean, I wasn't trying to." She shook her head gently. "No. I'm not asking about privacy. Not about the company. I'm asking," her voice faltered, then steadied. "Did you think I looked pretty?" The breath punched out of him. Pretty? A billionaire CEO? The most feared executive in downtown Seattle? He stared at her, stunned into silence. "I shouldn't be asking this." She gave a small, bitter laugh. "It's wildly inappropriate and unprofessional. But for once, I want an honest answer from someone who doesn't need to flatter me or fear me." Noah's mouth opened. No sound came out. She wasn't joking. She wasn't testing him. She wasn't manipulating anything. She was asking from a place that felt raw, exposed. Eleanor Hayes, the woman Forbes called Seattle's untouchable Iron Queen. The woman who owned half the building they were standing in. The woman whose employees walked on eggshells around her. Was asking a single dad from Beacon Hill if she was pretty. In his entire life, Noah had fixed hundreds of computers. He'd handled panicked clients, rude ones, entitled ones, clueless ones. But nothing prepared him for this. Her eyes held his, quietly pleading. For a moment, he forgot the skyscraper, the luxury, the status gap, the power imbalance. He saw only a woman who had everything and still somehow felt unseen. He finally found his voice. "I don't know if I'm the right person to answer that." "Why not?" she whispered. "Because," he said, "anything I say could be taken the wrong way." "But you won't lie to me," she said with heartbreaking certainty. "People lie to me all day. They tell me what they think I want to hear. They tell me what benefits them. I'm asking you because you don't need anything from me." Noah felt the weight of her loneliness. The heaviness of it clung to the air like rain clouds over the Puget Sound. He swallowed hard. "Ms. Hayes." "Eleanor," she corrected softly. He froze again. Eleanor's voice dropped to almost a whisper. "Noah, please, tell me the truth." His heartbeat thundered. He looked at the photo again. Not because he wanted to, but because she was asking him to see her. The real her. The one without the armor, without the power, without the title. His throat tightened. He turned to her. And that was when the office lights flickered. A loud ping echoed from the computer. A ripple of corrupted code flashed across the screen, lines scrolling faster than he could process. The system was reacting. Something was happening. Something big. Noah's breath hitched. He didn't know if the next command he typed would fix the issue. Or expose even more. Stories like Noah's remind us how fragile people can be beneath the surface. If this moment moved you even a little, consider staying with us by subscribing. It helps keep these human stories alive. For the next 2 days, Noah tried with everything he had, to return to normal life. But nothing felt normal anymore. Not his small Beacon Hill apartment with its flickering kitchen light, not the morning scramble of packing Luna's school lunch, not the afternoon repair calls he squeezed in between grocery runs at Safeway and refilling bus cards at the QFC kiosk. His hands moved through routine motions, but his mind kept drifting back to the 52nd floor of Hayes Dynamics Tower. Back to the image on the screen. Back to the look in Eleanor Hayes's eyes. Back to her whisper, soft, trembling, asking a question she had no business asking a freelance computer tech. "Am I pretty?" Every time the memory resurfaced, Noah's stomach tightened. The moment felt too big, too fragile, too dangerous to touch. But the human part of him, the part that lived in quiet corners and late-night doubts, couldn't forget the fear behind her question, the loneliness woven into her voice. He'd answered her, carefully, but even now he wasn't sure what terrified him more, how much she needed the truth, or how much he needed to give it. On the second evening, while he reheated leftover spaghetti for Luna, Noah's phone buzzed on the counter. He ignored it at first. He had promised his daughter no phones during dinner, but then the screen lit again. And again. Unknown number. He frowned. Scammers usually gave up after one try. It rang a fourth time. No one calls like that unless something's on fire, he muttered, wiping his hands on a towel before finally answering. Hello. A familiar voice flowed through the speaker, cool and calibrated, but he heard something beneath it. Tension. Restraint. Noah? This is Eleanor Hayes. He stiffened. Ms. Hayes, hi. Is everything okay? No, she said. I need you to come in. His pulse jumped. Tonight. Yes. I'm sending a car to your address. Wait, a car? You don't have to do. It's already outside. He moved to the apartment window. Sure enough, a sleek black Lincoln Navigator idled at the curb, completely out of place among the old sedans and hand-me-down minivans typical of their street. Luna looked up from her spaghetti. Dad? Who is it? Noah swallowed. A client. I need to step out for a bit. Her little brow scrunched. This late? He hesitated. He didn't want her worrying. It's an important one. She slid off her chair and walked over, placing her small hand on his. Be safe, okay? Those 3 words hit harder than any skyscraper's weight. He knelt, kissed her forehead, and tried to smile. Always. Minutes later, he was in the back seat of the Lincoln, watching Beacon Hill fade behind him as the driver headed downtown. The lights of Seattle rose like a steel and glass forest, Pike Place neon glowing in the distance, the Ferris wheel spinning along the waterfront, Amazon's campus stretching like a small city within the city. When the car stopped in front of Hayes Dynamics Tower, Noah's nerves flared. He half expected security to greet him with handcuffs, convinced he'd somehow breached a line he couldn't see. But the lobby guard simply nodded and motioned him through. Up the elevator. Past employees who gave him long, puzzled stares. Past the glass doors of the IT department. And that was where the confusion started. A cluster of IT staff stood around a central workstation, all mid-conversation. When Noah passed, they quieted instantly. A woman with a badge that read Chief IT Engineer narrowed her eyes. You're Reeves, right? The freelance guy. Yeah. She exchanged irritated glances with 2 other engineers. We've been troubleshooting the CEO's system non-stop for 2 days. She wouldn't let anyone touch her primary machine except you. Another tech added. She turned down her own cybersecurity lead. But she wants you. The emphasis wasn't kind. Noah lifted his hands defensively. I have no idea why. I didn't ask for Reeves. He turned. Eleanor stood in her office doorway, wearing a charcoal blazer over a silk blouse, expression carved from ice. But her eyes told a different story. Inside. Now. The door clicked shut behind them. Her office was dimmer tonight. Only the city lights illuminated the room, casting reflections across the floor-to-ceiling windows. Eleanor paced once before stopping, arms crossed. Noah, she began, her voice lower than usual, what happened 2 nights ago wasn't just a computer glitch. He tensed. I figured something deeper was going on. She nodded. The photo you saw, it wasn't supposed to be recoverable. That folder was wiped last year. Permanently. Or so I was told. Noah blinked. So someone restored it? Or someone hid it, she said. inside a partition only accessible through a cascading trigger. A trap folder? He asked. Eleanor's jaw tightened. A revealing one. Her meaning hit him slowly. Someone planted it, or protected it, or weaponized it. And whatever the answer was, it wasn't safe. Noah exhaled. So why am I here? She faced him fully. Because you're the only one who saw it, and didn't try to exploit it. He stared at her. Ms. Hayes. Eleanor, she corrected softly again. He ignored the way his chest tightened. Look, I didn't mean to intrude. I wasn't trying to. That's exactly why I want you, she cut in. He froze. I have employees with degrees from MIT and Stanford, she continued. People who build firewalls for fun, people who hack encrypted systems in their sleep, and not one of them is honest with me. Noah swallowed hard. I'm not qualified to lead any kind of investigation. I don't need someone qualified, she said, stepping closer. I need someone who has nothing to gain from lying to me. Someone outside the internal politics. Someone who won't manipulate what he finds. His pulse quickened. She was asking him to help. Asking him to be involved. Asking him to step into something private, dangerous, possibly career-ending. Eleanor's voice softened. I trust you, Noah. I don't know why, but I do. He rubbed the back of his neck, mind racing. Bills. Luna. His simple freelance life. What was he doing standing in the office of a billionaire CEO who could crush him with a single decision? But then he remembered her face when she asked him if she was pretty. The rawness. The fear. The humanity. He exhaled shakily. What exactly are you asking me to do? Her answer was barely above a whisper. Help me uncover who's watching me. The room went still. Seattle glowed outside like a world too far away to reach. Inside the office, only one truth existed. This wasn't a repair job. This was trust handed to the one man she believed wouldn't weaponize it. If someone powerful trusted you with something this delicate, would you accept, or walk away? For a long moment after Eleanor's request, Noah said nothing. The hum of the city below filled the silence, cars threading through the streets, a ferry horn echoing faintly across Elliott Bay, the low mechanical pulse of servers behind the office walls. The room felt suspended between two choices: walk away and stay safe, or step into a life he had no business entering. Eventually, he nodded. Not with confidence, but with something quieter, recognition. Okay, he said. I'll help. Relief flashed across Eleanor's face so quickly he almost questioned whether he'd imagined it. But then her shoulders lowered, only by a fraction, and she stepped aside as though inviting him into a more guarded part of her world. Then we should begin, she said. She led him to a side room connected to her office, smaller, darker, lit only by a desk lamp and the faint blue glow of active screens. It looked less like a workspace and more like a place she hid from the rest of the tower. The rest of the world. I come here when I need to think, she murmured. Or when I need to not be CEO for a moment. Noah sat down in front of one of the systems, pulling it closer. You mean a break room? She gave a small huff. I don't think I've had an actual break since I was 19. He glanced at her. She wasn't joking. As he began running early scans, Eleanor leaned against the wall, arms folded, not out of coldness, but something else. Habit. Defense. The kind of stance someone who'd spent a lifetime being watched would adopt without thinking. You said someone might be watching you, Noah said carefully, eyes on the cascading code. Is this common? At your level? She let out a humorless laugh. Common? Surveillance, sabotage, family betrayal, corporate espionage. Those things thrive at this level. People sleep with ambition under their pillows. Your family too? he asked quietly. Her eyes drifted toward the window. Especially my family. She walked closer, her steps slow, her voice softer than before. They expected me to inherit this company without flinching, to fire people without blinking, to win every negotiation, dominate every contract, and outwork every competitor. But they never expected me to be human. He looked at her, really looked at her. The expensive clothes, the perfect posture, the intimidating presence. But beneath it all was a woman carrying an empire she never asked for. You don't have anyone to talk to about any of this? Noah asked. She shook her head. I can't trust friends. Employees fear me. Business partners want something from me. My mother sends cold reminders of how I'm failing to uphold the family legacy. And my brother, she paused. Well, let's just say he's part of the reason we're having this conversation. Siblings, Noah murmured. Yeah, that's always complicated. Do you have any? She asked. No, but I do have a daughter, which is its own exhausting adventure. Eleanor turned toward him with a curiosity that softened her entire expression. Luna, she said, remembering the name from the work order. She's young. 6, Noah said with a small smile. 6 going on 16. Eleanor actually smiled, a fleeting but real moment of warmth. She's lucky to have you. Noah sighed. Some days I'm not sure. Seattle isn't exactly easy for a single dad. Rent alone takes half my soul. Groceries take the rest. Then Luna wants her little art kits, her sparkly hair clips, and I'm standing there pretending I'm not calculating the math in my head. Eleanor listened like no one had listened to him in years, attentive, present, absorbing every word. It's expensive here, he continued. And lonely sometimes. I mean, I have Luna, and she's incredible. But adults need adults. And after my ex left, it's just been us. And the noise inside my head. She studied him. You speak about her like she's your anchor. She is. He swallowed. She's the reason I didn't completely fall apart. There was a silence then, a shared one, soft and unspoken. A silence that didn't feel awkward. It felt like understanding. Eventually, Eleanor stepped closer, her arms loosening, her voice almost hesitant. You asked if I had anyone to talk to. The truth is, I don't know how anymore. I've spent years being the person everyone fears, respects, or envies. But no one sees me. Not really. Maybe, Noah said quietly. They never tried. And you? She asked. Did your wife ever see you? He paused, fingers hovering over the keyboard. At first. But then she changed. Or maybe I changed. Or maybe we both realized we loved different versions of each other that didn't exist anymore. She said she felt trapped. That I didn't dream big enough. She left when Luna was 4. Eleanor's expression softened even further. I'm sorry. It's okay, Noah said. Luna and we're better now. Stronger. You don't speak about yourself like someone strong, she said. Not accusing, just honest. He shrugged. I don't think I am. She shook her head slowly. You're stronger than most people I know. And I know men who run half the West Coast. Noah didn't know what to do with that. Compliments from people like her felt dangerous, like they carried weight he wasn't meant to hold. He redirected his focus to the screen. Looks like some of your system logs have been tampered with. Eleanor tensed. How badly? Not enough to destroy evidence, he said, leaning closer. But enough to hide it. Someone tried to mask their activity. That's intentional sabotage. Her breath hitched, just slightly. Is it something you expected? He asked. No, she whispered. But it's something I feared. She walked toward the window again, staring out at the skyline, Seattle glowing like a circuit board beneath the night. You know, Noah said after a moment, you carry everything alone. All this pressure, all these expectations. No one could survive that without cracking. She turned her head, eyes shimmering faintly in the city light. I crack all the time, she admitted. Just never where anyone can see. He didn't know whether to comfort her or pretend he didn't notice the vulnerability in her voice. But he did know one thing. For all her power, all her money, all her influence, Eleanor Hayes was lonely. And so was he. Two people on opposite ends of the world, both pretending their armor was enough. He looked at her with quiet honesty. Have you ever met someone who looked strong on the outside but was breaking silently inside? For the next 2 days, Noah tried to settle back into normal life, but the conversation in Eleanor's dim side office clung to him like a shadow. Her confession, her loneliness, her trust, and the way she had looked out over Seattle as if searching for a version of herself she'd long forgotten how to be. He kept telling himself that whatever she was going through had nothing to do with him. He was just a computer repair tech, a single dad, someone who patched problems and disappeared. But the truth was harder. He cared. More than he should. Saturday arrived, and with it came Luna's favorite weekly ritual. Target run, she announced dramatically as she hopped off the couch, slipping her tiny canvas shoes on the wrong feet. Noah laughed under his breath. Fix your shoes, Moonbeam. She grinned without fixing them. They still work. He shook his head and grabbed his keys. They walked out into the cool Capitol Hill air, the smell of coffee drifting from the Starbucks nearby, the street humming with a mix of weekend energy and Seattle drizzle. The Target on Broadway wasn't large, but for Luna it was a magical world filled with glitter glue, plush toys, and juice boxes. Can we look at the art stuff first? She asked, already tugging him toward the escalator. Yeah, he said. As long as we don't spend too long. We're on a budget. I know, she said simply, so matter-of-factly it made his chest ache. Just looking. They turned into the kids' craft aisle, Luna bouncing with excitement despite knowing they mostly browsed. Noah watched her run little fingers over the rainbow gel pens as if touching treasure. He wished he could buy her everything she wanted. He wished wanting didn't feel like failure. Daddy, look. Luna whispered suddenly. The sparkly star stickers are back. I see that, he said with a smile. Very sparkly. Luna giggled. They're sparkly like. She froze. Noah looked down. Her little face had gone wide, not scared, but amazed. He followed her gaze. Eleanor Hayes was standing at the end of the aisle. Not in power heels, not in a CEO jacket, not with her usual untouchable composure. She wore black leggings, a simple gray sweater, and white sneakers that looked like they'd never touched a boardroom. Her hair was down, soft and wavy. She looked human, younger, almost shy, and she was holding a basket filled with cereal, scented candles, and, of all things, a jumbo pack of gummy bears. Noah? She asked, a rare flicker of surprise on her face. He blinked. Eleanor? I thought CEOs didn't do Target. I do, she said, cheeks warming faintly. Just not where people I know usually see me. Luna peeked out from behind Noah's leg. Eleanor spotted her instantly, and everything about her shifted. The guardedness melted, her posture softened, and for the first time since he'd met her, her entire expression lit up with warmth. And who is this? She asked gently. This, Noah said, resting a hand on his daughter's head, is Luna. Eleanor crouched down to Luna's height, her voice tender. Hi, Luna. I'm Eleanor. It's very nice to meet you. Luna studied her for a moment. Then, in her small, earnest voice, she whispered, You're really pretty. Noah's heart stalled. Eleanor froze, not in the fearful way she had when Noah saw her photo, but as if those words pierced something deep inside her. Slowly, her lips curved into a genuine smile, soft, almost vulnerable. "Thank you," she said. "That's very kind." Luna stepped forward. "Do you like stickers?" Eleanor blinked, startled. "I haven't used them in a long time." "You should," Luna said solemnly. "They make everything better." Noah laughed, embarrassed. "Sorry. She loves stickers more than life." "No," Eleanor whispered, eyes still on Luna. "I think she's right." For a moment, the three of them just stood there, an unlikely trio in the middle of a Saturday Target run. Something about the simplicity, the normalcy, felt surreal. Like Eleanor was stepping into a life she didn't usually get to have. Like Luna was the only person in the world who saw her without expectation or fear. "What are you shopping for?" Noah asked to break the tension. Eleanor held up her basket. "Soap, cereal, candles, and," she paused, embarrassed, "gummy bears." Luna gasped as if hearing a royal secret. "You like candy?" Eleanor laughed, a sound Noah wasn't sure he'd ever heard before. "Very much." "That means you're normal," Luna declared with relief. Eleanor stood slowly, her smile lingering. "I try to be." Then Luna spotted a small unicorn plush hanging on a clearance hook. Her eyes widened. Noah's heart sank. He knew that look. "Luna," he warned gently, "we're just looking, remember?" "I know." She lowered her hands behind her back, trying to be brave. "It's okay." But her eyes didn't move from the unicorn. Eleanor followed her gaze. Something tender flickered through her expression. She picked the plush gently from the hook, examining it as if it were a fragile artifact. "Is this your favorite?" Eleanor asked. Luna nodded, trying not to look too hopeful. "But I don't need it." Eleanor glanced at Noah. He tensed. "Eleanor, you don't have to." "I want to," she said softly. "No," he said firmly. "It's not appropriate. You're my client. And this is my daughter. I don't want her thinking." Eleanor stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Noah, it's just a toy." He swallowed. Hard. He wasn't sure why this moment struck him so deeply. Maybe because of how gently she held the unicorn. Maybe because she looked like she needed to give Luna something more than a gift. Something human, something simple. Luna whispered, "Daddy, it's okay. She's nice." Noah breathed out slowly. He glanced at Eleanor. She wasn't using power. Or money. Or status. Just kindness. Quiet, genuine kindness. He nodded once. Eleanor smiled. "Then the unicorn is coming home with you, Luna." Luna squealed, throwing her arms around Eleanor's legs so suddenly that Eleanor let out a startled breath. And then, the impossible, Eleanor bent down and hugged her back, eyes closing for a small, trembling second. It was a moment so soft, so unexpected, that Noah felt something inside him shift. When they walked to check out together, Luna holding Eleanor's hand, Noah realized something undeniable. He wasn't the only one who needed connection. Eleanor needed it too. Moments like this remind us how connection shows up when we least expect it. If this touched your heart even a little, consider staying with us. Your presence here matters more than you know. Noah had worked late nights before, but never inside a penthouse office 40 stories above Seattle, with a CEO pacing slowly behind him like a storm barely held together. The room was dim except for the soft glow of the city bleeding through floor-to-ceiling windows. Eleanor had insisted the lights stay low, said it helped her think, but Noah suspected it was because exhaustion looked less obvious in shadows. He sat before her computer, fingers hovering over the keys, eyes narrowed at the console logs that scrolled endlessly across the screen. Something wasn't right. Something wasn't normal. Corporate systems didn't write to themselves at 2:17 a.m., and they definitely didn't delete their own audit trails. It was like watching footprints vanish in freshly fallen snow. Noah leaned closer, muttering under his breath, "This is deliberate. Definitely deliberate." Behind him, Eleanor stopped pacing. Meaning? He swallowed. This was the part he hated. Delivering bad news. Meaning someone inside your system is doing this on purpose. For a long moment, she didn't speak. He expected anger, or denial, or a demand for explanations he didn't have yet. Instead, she walked to the window, folded her arms tightly, and stared at the lights of the city as if searching for answers down below. "It started months ago," she said quietly. "Small things at first. Files missing. Numbers not adding up. My board questioning decisions I didn't make." Her voice tightened, like it hurt to keep speaking but hurt worse not to. "I thought I was imagining it. Or overworked. But then projections were altered, emails rewritten, approvals placed under my name that I never gave." She turned slightly, eyes dark. "Someone wants me gone." Noah felt a slow chill crawl up the back of his neck. This was no longer just a malfunction. This was a target. A deliberate, skillful one. He clicked into another log file, scanning. Who has access to these directories? At this level. "Executives, directors, lead engineers," she replied. "People with enough seniority to hide their tracks, or enough arrogance to believe I wouldn't catch them." He exhaled, glancing over his shoulder. "And you didn't call your IT department because?" Eleanor let out a quiet, humorless laugh. "Because I don't know who I can trust. And after that first night, you didn't lie to me. Not once." She paused. "You didn't even try to comfort me. Most people do. They assume they know the right thing to say. You didn't. You just saw me. That matters more than skill." Noah wasn't used to being complimented by billionaires. Or by anyone, really. He felt heat creep up the back of his ears, and quickly turned back to the monitor to hide it. "Okay," he said, focusing. "Let's dig more." Hours slipped by as he pieced together fragments. Timestamps that didn't align, data packets traced to internal terminals, subtle metadata left behind like crumbs. Whoever was doing this knew the system deeply, but not deeply enough to erase every shadow of their steps. At one point, Noah pushed his chair back and rubbed his eyes. "This user ID, it doesn't make sense." He pointed at a coded identifier. "It's either spoofed or someone higher up is involved." Eleanor stiffened. "Higher up? As in board level?" "I don't want to guess yet," he said gently. "But you were right to worry." She walked to his side, her presence close enough that he could smell the faint trace of her perfume, clean, sharp, expensive. A scent that didn't suit the vulnerability lining her features right now. "Do you ever get tired, Noah?" she asked softly. "Of having to be the one who fixes everything?" He blinked at the unexpected question. "More than I admit." "Me too," she whispered. Their eyes met for a brief moment, hers tired, his uncertain. Two people from different worlds sharing the same quiet fracture. Noah cleared his throat, turning back to the screen. Emotional moments made him flustered. Logs and data were easier. "Look," he said, highlighting a section. "Someone accessed your internal proposal documents last Thursday at 3:04 a.m. I wasn't here." "I know. You didn't log in. Which means someone used elevated permissions." Eleanor let out a slow, shaky breath. "They're building a case against me." "Or sabotaging one," he corrected. "Either way, this is real." She sank into the chair opposite him, her posture collapsing in a way he suspected she never allowed anyone else to witness. "I've been carrying this alone," she murmured, trying to hold dignity, authority, calm, all while feeling like someone is tightening a rope around my ankles. Noah hesitated, then spoke gently. "You don't have to carry it alone anymore." Her eyes flicked to him, sharp, assessing, almost disbelieving. "Why? Why are you helping me?" Her tone wasn't accusatory, it was confused, vulnerable. "Because you asked," he replied simply. She stared at him, and something inside her cracked just enough to let an emotion soften through. Gratitude, fear, relief, maybe all three. "Noah," she began, but he raised a hand. "I'm not asking for anything," he said. "Not money, not favors. I'm just doing what I'd want someone to do for me if the roles were reversed." For a moment, neither spoke. The only sound was the soft hum of the city outside and the gentle clatter of the cooling computer tower. Then Eleanor inhaled deeply and straightened, composure slowly returning. "What do we do next?" "We keep going," Noah answered. "Quietly, carefully. I'll trace what I can. But this stays between us." "And if they discover you're helping me?" He shrugged. "I've been in worse spots." That wasn't entirely true, but he couldn't afford to look afraid. Her expression shifted. Something protective, something fierce. "I won't let anything happen to you," she said quietly. It startled him how much she meant it. He nodded once. "Then we move forward." As the night wore on, they worked in tense silence, their unlikely partnership deepening in the glow of the computer screen. By the time Noah gathered his tools to leave, the first hints of dawn were brushing the skyline. At the door, Eleanor spoke softly, almost like she feared the light would steal back the courage she'd mustered. "Noah, if you discovered sabotage against someone you barely knew, would you step in, or stay out of it?" He met her gaze. "I guess you already know my answer." And with that, he stepped into the hallway, unaware of how deeply this secret would tie their lives together. The city lights of Seattle stretched out like a glittering circuit board beneath them, painting the glass walls of Eleanor Hayes's office in shards of gold and blue. It was past midnight, but neither Eleanor nor Noah seemed to notice. The hum of servers in the corner and the occasional honk from Pike Place far below were the only sounds that punctuated their long silence. Eleanor sat on the edge of her desk, legs crossed, fingers tracing the seam of her blazer as if holding herself together physically. Noah leaned against the back of a leather chair, arms crossed, watching her with careful attentiveness. They'd spent hours that evening running diagnostics, combing through logs, and tracing sabotage attempts. But now, the room was quiet except for the soft, uneven breaths of the two people who had come dangerously close to seeing each other unguarded. "You know," Eleanor began, voice low, almost hesitant, "people think that being successful means you're untouchable. That wealth, power, and influence shield you from anything that hurts. They're wrong." Noah didn't answer immediately. He let her words hang, heavy in the space between them. "I've spent my life trying to be perfect," she continued. "Perfect daughter, perfect student, perfect employee, perfect CEO. Every step of the way, I was watched, judged, measured against some impossible standards set by a family who thought love was conditional on achievement." She shook her head slowly, as if shaking off memories she wished could vanish. "By the time I inherited this company, I realized I'd spent 30 years being what everyone expected me to be, and I didn't even know who I was." Noah swallowed, feeling the weight of her confession. He had seen traces of her loneliness before, vulnerabilities cracked through by the accidental exposure of a photo, the way she softened around Luna, but hearing her voice tremble like this, recounting a lifetime of silent battles, made her real in a way that no boardroom could. "I left my husband," he said finally, quietly. "Not because I stopped loving him, but because we stopped being the same people. He wanted a life I couldn't give him, and I wanted stability he couldn't provide. I came home to an apartment every night where only Luna's laughter made the walls feel like they belonged to someone who cared. Eleanor's eyes softened, watching him as though seeing the pain he'd carefully hidden. So you know what it's like to feel abandoned, and still have to keep going. I know, he admitted. Some days, it feels like survival is the only skill I have left. She nodded, letting a shadow pass across her face. That's exactly it. 4 years, I've been surviving, not living. Smiling when I wanted to scream, talking when I wanted to be silent, pretending to be untouchable when inside. Inside I'm just, she paused, searching for the word, human. Noah leaned forward slightly, voice gentle. You're human, and it's okay to show it. She laughed softly, bitter and sweet all at once. Human doesn't get bored approvals, Noah. Human doesn't stop investors from tearing your company apart. Human doesn't prevent sabotage in its tracks. Human barely survives without a bodyguard, an IT team, and a PR firm. I think that human does just fine, Noah replied, surprising himself with the strength in his words. Because you're still standing. You're still trying. And you're letting me in. That counts for more than you think. Her lips parted slightly, caught between disbelief and a flicker of hope. For the first time since he'd met her, Eleanor's walls seemed not just lowered, but cracked in a way that allowed warmth to seep through. I never thought anyone would see me, she whispered. Not the real me. And here you are, watching, listening, actually seeing me without fear, without judgment. And she hesitated, the words heavy on her tongue. I don't know how to process that. Noah shrugged slightly, a nervous gesture. You don't have to. Just be honest with yourself. For a while, they just sat there. The hum of the servers, the city's night noise below, the quiet rhythm of shared solitude filling the room. Every so often, Eleanor would glance at him, not with command or caution, but with something fragile, almost childlike, searching, waiting, unsure if the connection was real or imagined. You know, she said finally, her voice a touch steadier, I've spent so long thinking I could only rely on myself, that letting anyone in was dangerous. But maybe that was the loneliest part. I understand that, Noah said. It's hard to let someone see your cracks when everyone expects you to be perfect. She looked at him with a faint, almost teasing smile. And yet, you still see them. I'm not perfect either, he replied. I've got flaws. I make mistakes. But I guess I've learned that showing them doesn't make you weaker. Sometimes it makes you stronger. Her eyes softened, and she leaned back in the desk chair, taking in the cityscape again. Stronger, yes, but scarred. Her voice carried an unspoken weight, and Noah realized she wasn't just talking about corporate battles. She was speaking about every hurt, every betrayal, every lonely night of wondering if she mattered. I've got scars too, he admitted. Some days I feel like they define me. But then Luna laughs, or she hugs me, or we watch the sunset from our apartment balcony, and for a moment, those scars feel lighter. And I realize, being human isn't about hiding the scars. It's about living with them. Eleanor's gaze lingered on him. For a long, unbroken moment, they shared a quiet understanding that transcended words. It was the kind of connection people rarely find. Two lonely souls, so different in circumstance, yet intimately familiar in isolation. She exhaled slowly, her voice barely above a whisper. Noah, thank you. For not pretending, for not running, for being here. He nodded, feeling a heat rise in his chest he hadn't expected. I'm here, he said simply. And I'll stay as long as you need me. For the first time that night, Eleanor's composure faltered completely. Her walls, so meticulously constructed over decades, crumbled just enough to let truth, vulnerability, and trust fill the space. They didn't hold hands. They didn't speak of love. But something shifted, something undeniable, between the CEO and the single dad who had walked into her life and refused to leave. The city outside carried on, indifferent and vast, but inside that glass office, a fragile human connection had taken root. And as Noah packed up his tools to leave, Eleanor's gaze lingered on him, lingering far longer than any professional necessity required. What would you say to Eleanor if you had the chance? Comfort, advice, or warning? He thought as he stepped toward the elevator, knowing that the answer was no longer simple, and that their lives were about to become even more entangled. The phone rang just as Noah had settled into the quiet of his Beacon Hill apartment. Luna was asleep, tucked under a blanket she had dragged to the edge of his couch, her tiny chest rising and falling in even rhythm. Noah stared at the screen, the late-night hour making the unknown caller feel like an intrusion into his fragile peace. The name flashing on the screen made him hesitate, then his thumb pressed, "Answer." "Noah, it's me," Eleanor's voice came through, taut, urgent. "You need to come to the tower. Now." He sat upright, the echo of sleep leaving him disoriented. "Eleanor? What's wrong?" "I can't explain over the phone," she said sharply. "It's serious. Just come." His stomach sank. There was an edge in her voice he had never heard before. Not frustration, not command, but sheer, unfiltered fear. "All right," he said, already reaching for his jacket. "I'll be there." The drive downtown was a blur of rainy streets and neon reflections. The city felt different at this hour, quieter, more insidious, like it was holding its breath. Noah's mind raced, imagining every possible scenario. He knew her company was large, successful, and ruthless, but now the thought of a personal threat lurking within the ranks made it terrifyingly intimate. And the deeper truth hit him: what Eleanor needed tonight might demand a risk he hadn't prepared to take. When he arrived at Hayes Dynamics Tower, the lobby was empty except for the faint hum of security cameras. The elevators whisked him to the 40th floor, where Eleanor met him at the door, hair slightly disheveled, eyes shadowed with exhaustion and tension. "Thank you for coming," she said, voice low, almost trembling. "I couldn't trust anyone else with this." Noah's brows furrowed. "Trust me with what?" She motioned him inside her office, closing the door behind him with a quiet click that felt heavier than usual. The office lights were dimmed, the usual gleam of the glass walls muted by the city night. Eleanor walked to the desk and tapped a small folder in front of him. "I've traced everything," she said, sliding it toward him. "Emails, altered contracts, unauthorized access logs. This isn't just incompetence. Someone inside my company is deliberately undermining me, trying to destroy everything I've built." Noah opened the folder and began scanning. His eyes widened as he recognized patterns, initials, and even email headers connected to a familiar name, someone who had crossed paths with him long before. Someone he thought he had left behind in his past. "You know this person?" Eleanor asked quietly, watching him closely. He swallowed hard. "Yeah, I do. And if these trails are real, it's serious. Very serious." She exhaled, relief and fear mingling in her expression. "I need you, Noah. Not just to find the technical mistakes, but because I trust you. You're the only person I can trust right now." Her voice was raw, vulnerable, and unlike any tone she had ever used with employees or executives. "If I ask you to risk yourself, will you?" The weight of her words pressed down on him. It wasn't just the threat of corporate sabotage anymore. It was personal, dangerous, and complicated by the unexpected bond that had formed between them. He thought of Luna, of his quiet apartment, of the life he had fought so hard to maintain. Yet looking at Eleanor, the stark truth was unavoidable. He couldn't step back. Not now. Not after she had shown him the real fragility beneath her iron exterior. "I'll do it," he said finally, voice steady. "Whatever it takes." Her eyes softened, but only for a fleeting moment. Then she leaned in, voice dropping to a whisper. "You have to understand, if this goes wrong, it won't just be the company at risk. It could be everything. careers, reputations, safety. I need someone who doesn't flinch, someone who doesn't have other agendas. Noah's jaw tightened. I don't. I'm in this with you. Eleanor exhaled, running a hand over her face, as if releasing tension she had carried alone for months. I've spent my life alone, Noah. And for the first time, I don't have to be. He looked at her, really looked, and for a moment the lines between professional and personal blurred. She wasn't just a CEO with a problem anymore. She was Eleanor, the woman who had smiled at Luna, who had confided fears and regrets in him, who had trusted him with the fragile remnants of her life. And he felt it, the deep, unspoken pull toward protecting her, even at the cost of his own security. They spent hours reviewing the evidence. Late-night logs, internal communications, and coded emails revealed a network of sabotage that was both methodical and ruthless. Every piece of information Noah traced deepened the gravity of the situation and deepened the trust Eleanor placed in him. He worked tirelessly, tracing IP addresses, verifying metadata, and reconstructing deleted messages, each revelation binding them closer in shared purpose and silent understanding. By the time they paused, the city below had grown quiet, the first hints of dawn brushing the horizon. Eleanor leaned back, exhaustion painting her features with lines that no boardroom audience had ever seen. You're remarkable, she said softly. Not for what you can do, but for who you are. Honest. Reliable. Human. Noah looked at her, his own chest tight. I'm just doing what's right. No, she whispered. You're doing what I can't ask anyone else to do. And you're doing it for me. The words hung between them, fragile but charged with intensity. The danger wasn't over. The threat still loomed, entwined with people Noah had known and trusted before. Yet in that room, amid the hum of servers and the soft glow of Seattle at dawn, a bond had formed that neither could ignore. Noah packed his laptop, aware that the stakes had shifted irreversibly. Eleanor's hand brushed the folder toward him again, and he noticed the tremor in her fingers, the vulnerability in her eyes. It was a moment suspended between duty, trust, and an unspoken emotional connection. As he stepped toward the door, she spoke quietly, almost a warning, almost a plea. Noah, I can't do this without you. He met her gaze, understanding the full weight of her words, and nodded. I'm here. We'll get through this. Outside, the first light of morning painted the city in soft amber, but inside, the tension remained, unbroken, raw, and binding them together in a way neither had anticipated. If you were in Noah's position, would you risk everything to help her, or protect your own peace? The office was quiet now, the only sounds the faint hum of the servers and the city waking below. Eleanor Hayes sat behind her desk, the glow from the computer screens casting soft shadows across her face. Noah stood near the window, gazing out at the streets far below, but his thoughts were tangled with what had just transpired. The hours of digging through sabotage, the late-night tension, and the raw, unspoken connection that had been building between them for weeks. Finally, he turned, meeting her eyes. Eleanor, I need to tell you something, he began, voice low, hesitant. It's not just about the company or the sabotage. It's more. She leaned back slightly, curious but wary. Go on. He took a deep breath. Since my wife left, I haven't felt seen. Not really. Not by anyone. I've been going through the motions, raising Luna, keeping up appearances, fixing computers, fixing problems that aren't mine. But no one has actually looked at me and seen me. And for the first time in years, you made me feel visible. Human. The words hung in the air, heavier than any technical report or log file he'd ever presented. Eleanor's breath caught, and for a moment, she said nothing. The vulnerability on both sides was palpable, the unguarded truth breaking through the years of distance and armor they had built around themselves. Eleanor reached forward, resting her fingers lightly on the edge of her desk. Noah, I never thought I'd feel that way again. Not after years of being cautious, careful, always calculating. But you make me feel human. Really human. Not a CEO. Not a boardroom persona. Just me. He swallowed hard, the admission tasting like both relief and fear. I didn't plan for this. I didn't plan to feel this. But I can't ignore it either. Her eyes searched his, the usual steel softened by exhaustion and raw honesty. We're standing on dangerous ground. You know that, right? Whatever this is between us, it's complicated. It could change everything. But I can't lie about it. I can't pretend that it's just professional. Not anymore. Noah stepped closer, the tension thickening around them. I don't care about complicated. I care about truth. And the truth is, I've never met anyone who understands what it's like to carry everything alone, yet still keep going, the way you do. I admire you. I care about you. For a long moment, Eleanor looked down at her hands, then back at him. Her lips trembled slightly as she spoke. I've been alone in ways I didn't even realize. And now you're here, seeing me, not expecting me to be perfect, not judging me. And it terrifies me because it's real. And real is dangerous. Noah's hand hovered near hers, an instinctive reach that paused just short of contact. Sometimes dangerous is what we need, he said softly. Sometimes it's the only way to feel alive. The air between them was electric, each heartbeat echoing louder than any words. Eleanor's composure, so carefully maintained in boardrooms and meetings, had crumbled completely. She was Eleanor, not the CEO, the woman who laughed with Luna, who confided fears and dreams, who allowed herself to trust someone again. And Noah, with all his cautious, quiet strength, had become her anchor in a world where trust was scarce. I don't know what comes next, she whispered, but I do know one thing. You've changed me already. You've reminded me that I can feel, that I can be seen, that maybe I can be happy again. Noah's chest tightened. I feel the same. And I don't want to go back to being invisible. Not anymore. Not to anyone. They stood there for a long moment, letting the truth between them settle. It was fragile, precarious, but undeniable. Each understood the risk, the possible consequences for both their professional and personal lives, but that understanding only strengthened the gravity of what they felt. Eleanor leaned back in her chair, eyes glistening with unspoken emotion. We're crossing a line, she said softly. A dangerous one. But I can't deny it. I can't resist it. Noah exhaled slowly, moving closer until he was within a few feet, careful yet deliberate. We're already past the line, he admitted. And I don't want to go back. Her hand brushed his briefly as she leaned forward, a fleeting contact that spoke volumes. The bond between them, forged in trust, vulnerability, and shared danger, had reached its peak tension. Whatever came next, neither could ignore the truth that had bound them together. Outside, Seattle's skyline was brightening with dawn, but inside the office, time seemed to stand still. Two lives, once isolated, once constrained by circumstance and fear, were now intertwined in ways neither could have anticipated. And as they stood there, facing the unknown, the risk, and the fragile promise of something more, they both understood that their lives would never be the same. If you've ever felt unseen or unheard, you understand this moment. If this story resonates with you, consider subscribing, not for me, but so these stories of being human keep finding you. Thanks for watching until the end. I put hours of work into crafting every story, writing, researching, and building every twist, just for you. If you enjoyed it, the best way to show it is by hitting like, subscribing, and leaving a comment. Every click tells me my hard work mattered. It may seem small to you, but to me it means everything.